No. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Thank you, Richard. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, December 24th, 2025. Your readers today are
Dick Shanley
and Larry Beenan, starting with the weather. Cloudy most of the time today. Dry for holiday travel. High 32. Cloudy tonight, low 29. Low clouds tomorrow. High 36. Friday, snow, sleet, and freezing rain beginning in the late morning, accumulating 1 to 3 inches, high 30. Saturday, we've got cloudy and not as cold with a high of 37. Sunday, we've got morning rain and cloudy with a high of 42. Monday, breezy and colder with a high of 25. And Tuesday, we've got snow mainly early with a high of 25. And the sun rose today at 7:45 a.m., sets tonight at 4:46 p.m., and believe it or not, the days are getting longer. And in the lake forecast, we've got a water temperature in Lake Erie of 41 degrees. Richard?
Buffalo Next Energy. Dunkirk is only local site willing to host nuclear site. The city of Dunkirk was the only Western New York community among 8 locations expressed interest in hosting a new nuclear power facility. The New York Power Authority had issued a solicitation known as a request for information for potential host communities for a nuclear power facility planned for upstate New York. I think there was enough positive feedback that we should at least enter the conversation about whether the city wants to be a host community, Dunkirk Mayor Kate Winseyaz said in an appearance on WDOE radio this month. Dunkirk is home to a former NRG energy facility which closed in 2016. The city is facing severe financial problems stemming in part from the plant's shutdown. State Senator George Borrello has urged the state to build a nuclear power facility at the former NRG site. The Power Authority is pleased with the robust response to the first request for information for our Advanced Nuclear Energy Development Project, said Lindsay Kryzak, an NYPA spokesperson. Advanced nuclear will play a key role under Governor Hochul's all-of-the-above approach to energy, ensuring we have reliable, emission-free electricity to keep the lights on and the cost down. Governor Kathy Hochul in June revealed plans for the state to add at least 1 gigawatt of additional nuclear power capacity and has directed NYPA to guide the process. In an appearance in Buffalo last Friday, she described receiving responses from 8 communities as a very positive development. I'm excited that there's so much energy around this, literally, that people really want this to be a place that their community can benefit from, Hochul said. NYPA asked communities that responded by December 11th deadline to identify at least 1 site with strong potential for a nuclear new build as it relates in size, water access, and protection from external hazards. They were also asked to demonstrate support from community members and key stakeholders. 2 of the other communities that responded to the solicitation were Oswego and Wayne counties, which are home to the state's active nuclear power facilities along Lake Ontario. The other 5 entities that expressed interest were Schuyler County in the Finger Lakes, Broome County in southern Tier, St. Lawrence, and Jefferson counties in the North Country, and RED Rochester LLC, which provides utilities for Eastman Business Park in Rochester. At this point, we're analyzing the submissions that were made said Justin Driscoll, NYPA's president and CEO. The key criteria are: what does the site look like? How big is it? What is your water access? NYPA issued a separate solicitation for developers interested in participating in the project and received 23 responses. That's extraordinary, Hochul said. That is beyond what I could have imagined. That's a new era for nuclear power in the state of New York. Among the 23 respondents was Constellation Energy, which owns and operates the state's active nuclear power plant.
Thank you, Dick. How did DOGE disrupt so much and save so little? Washington. Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency said it made more than 29,000 cuts to the federal government, slashing billion-dollar contracts, canceling thousands of grants, and pushing out civil servants. But the group did not do what Musk said it would: reduce federal spending by $1 trillion before October. On DOGE's watch, federal spending did not go down at all. It went up. How is that possible? One big reason, according to New York Times analysis, many of the largest savings that DOGE claimed out turned to be wrong. And while the group did make thousands of smaller cuts, jolting foreign aid recipients, American small businesses, and local service providers, those amounted to little in the scale of the federal budget. In DOGE's published list of canceled contracts and grants, for instance, the 13 largest were all incorrect. At the top were 2 Defense Department contracts, one for information technology, one for aircraft maintenance. Musk's group listed them as terminations and said their demise had saved the taxpayers $7.9 billion. That was not true. The contracts are still alive and well, and those savings were in accounting mirage. Together, those 2 false entries were bigger than 25,000 of DOGE's other claims combined. Of the 40 biggest claims on DOGE's list, the Times found only 12 that appeared accurate, reflecting real reductions in what the government had committed to spend. The Times analysis helps answer a basic question about DOGE, which was hard to judge in the group's chaotic heyday when it had enormous power to cut federal spending and force out government employees who stood in the way. At the time, in the early months of 2025, DOGE listed real cuts alongside fake ones and made it hard to tell the difference. That raised the question of whether DOGE, at its heart, was an exercise in budget cutting or in deception. It had elements of both, the Times found. But among DOGE's largest claims, the bogus savings were larger and much more common than the real ones. Similar errors and exaggerations recurred across the group's work. The Times analysis shows that in trying to demonstrate progress toward its budget-cutting goal, Musk's group turned other promises inside out. Musk had said that DOGE would be the most transparent organization in government ever, and that it would bring the precision of the tech world to government. Instead, the group became opaque, with its lack of progress obscured by errors, redactions, and indecipherable accounting that few private businesses would accept. Some of DOGE's employees are still working in the Trump administration, mainly on technology projects. But the group's budget cutting now seems to be spent, even as the fallout from fired federal workers and former grant recipients persists. The website where DOGE tallied its successes, called The Wall of Receipts, has not been updated since October 4th. At the White House, a spokesman declined to answer specific questions about DOGE's work, instead sending a broad statement about the president's goals. President Trump pledged to cut the waste, fraud, and abuse in our bloated government. Neither DOGE nor Musk, who left the group in May, responded to questions from the Times. In a podcast interview this month with Katie Miller, a former spokesperson for DOGE, Musk said his group had been somewhat successful at cutting spending, but he also said that if he could go back in time, he would not do it again. Instead of doing DOGE, I would have basically built, worked on my companies, he said. Big dollar boasts. To sort Doge's boasts from its successes, the Times looked at the federal records for the 40 largest items on the wall of receipts. In at least 28 cases, Doge got it wrong. Its errors included double counting. Doge took credit for canceling the same Energy Department grant twice, adding $500 million in duplicate savings. Timeline errors. One contract that Doge claimed credit for ending had actually been terminated in the Biden administration weeks before Doge began its work. 3 more items on Doge's list had simply expired. These were pandemic area contracts with pharmacies that provided free COVID-19 testing for the uninsured. They were originally allowed to spend up to a combined $12.2 billion, but they never came close to that level. Then in May, the 3 contracts ended on schedule. Doge still claimed credit for killing them, highlighting $6 billion in savings. Misclassifications. 7 programs that Doge claimed to have terminated are not dead, including 4 that were restructured by court rulings. Exaggerations. In 16 cases, Doge greatly exaggerated its cuts. Many, including those 2 large Defense Department contracts, relied on an accounting trick that produced savings with little real-world effect. Doge lowered the official ceiling value of contracts, reducing the theoretical limit on what the government could eventually pay without changing its actual spending. Real cuts, real pain. Despite all that, the Doge efforts led to some actual cuts that closed offices, canceled programs, and deprived people of food, medicine, and other aid. For people depending on those funds, the efforts were sudden and devastating. Doge initially terminated nearly every contract and grant at the U.S. Agency for International Development and sought to lay off most staff members as Musk put the agency through the wood chipper. Some aid programs were later revived, but thousands were canceled. For Plan International USA, the cancellation ended work on 13 grants, including one that provided food aid in Ethiopia and an education program in Nepal to keep girls in middle school to avoid early forced marriages. Its abrupt termination was listed on the wall as saving $11.7 million. We know for sure that our survivors are no longer able to serve our suffering, he said. Those dollar amounts were small compared to Doge's largest claims that, in effect, show how Doge ultimately saved so little but still caused so much disruption. For small businesses and local communities, relatively modest sums had minor effects. It's the small numbers that hurt people, said Lisa Shea Munt, whose company, The Pulse of GovCon, tracks government contracts. Richard?
Bills Gear scores big as a hot holiday gift. Team success, Allen's Appeal have retailers racking up sales. You would think, with the Buffalo Bills thrilling fans for the past few years, that their best performance since the 1990s heyday, Bills fever would have hit a plateau by now. You would be wrong. In September, the BFLO store, the official retailer of the Buffalo Bills, had its best month ever in the 13-year history of the company. Usually, December is the busiest, but there were a lot of home games in September, and we know we were 4-0 at the start of the season, said Nate Morose, the store's owner. So this past September felt like it was Black Friday every day almost. We were doing record numbers on the weekends that we never have seen before. Looking at the numbers, Morose was pleasantly surprised. How many Bills ornaments can one person have, he said. Turns out, if it commemorates the Bills last year at Highmark Stadium or say anything about Josh Allen being the NFL's reigning most valuable player, there's room for one more. With the Bills once again in the playoffs and passion for MVP and father-to-be Allen at a fever pitch, sales are soaring. In the weeks leading up to Christmas, demand for team merchandise has surged. Everything from Bills jerseys and beanies to snowsuits and stockings are flying off the shelves. It reflects not just the team's on-field success, but its growing national popularity as the Bills Mafia grows and shows up strong at the cash register. The Bills are on pace for a record-breaking year of sales at the Bills store. including the team having its best month of sales ever in September. That month, the teams began selling whiteout third jerseys featuring icy white designs, iced out numbers, and lake effect themes and other whiteout themed apparel. I think as a Bills fan, you might be disappointed if you don't have something with the Bills logo on it under the tree, said Greg Pastor, Executive Director of Marketing for the Bills. A Gift Town, a locally owned and operated store in fashion outlets of Niagara Falls, USA, Bills. Theme merchandise is featured prominently in the display windows. Whether we win or lose, we're always selling something, said owner Kim Ebert. What's the appeal? The Bills have done a whole lot more of the former lately, and people from all walks in life and every age demographic want to celebrate. That's especially the case as star quarterback Allen goes mainstream, with a plethora of endorsement deals and newly announced baby-to-be. He's so popular, he's peeling fans away from their own fan base around the country and tying their hearts to Buffalo. Combine that with the busy holiday shopping season and try not to jinx it hopes for the Super Bowl, and shoppers almost can't get enough. Everyone loves our quarterback, Ebert said. They just want one before they die. Bills themed items are a big seller at Totally Buffalo Store, which has locations in Amherst and Orchard Park. Serving the league's most passionate fan base makes for loyal customers. During the playoff drought, Van still showed up with pride, but the excitement now is different, said Marty Priones-Solani, the Storm's owner. There's a renewed confidence and joy around the team, and that absolutely translates into what people want to wear, gift, decorate. With Bill's pride has always been there. Now it's just louder and bolder. The Bills are more than just a football team in Buffalo, she said. They're part of the community identity, making them appeal just about as broad as it can get locally. When the team is winning, it gives people something to rally around, especially in the winter months, she said. Bills merchandise becomes a way to connect, celebrate, feel proud of where we're from. It's emotional, not just transactional. The pull remains strong, even after Buffalonians moved away, which widens the radius where retailers do business. Friona Solani said, Totally Buffalo ships Bills merchandise across the country every day. Bills gear is worn year-round, passed down through families, tied to memories, she said. That kind of emotional connection doesn't fade, and it's why the merchandise sells steadily, no matter the season. Roughly 65% of the BFLO store's gross sales come from Buffalo Bills licensed merchandise. The store saw a huge spike in 2020 when the Bills became the NFC East champions. It was just before Christmas, and Rose was averaging 3 hours of sleep per night trying to fill orders. It was the first time we had champions on a piece of anything, for 20 years. So people were going gangbusters, Rose said. Everybody wanted that for Christmas. The excitement continues. But how do retailers sustain the excitement in such robust sales volumes year after year? Well, what we found is every year it's always about the variety, at least for us. Instead of reordering the same item, we've always kind of focused more on having more variety, Rose said. We brought in some more SKUs than ever. Each year, it's not a question whether the Bills will buy Bills gear. It's a question how much they'll buy. Right now, the answer is lots. I remember back to when the Bills were 7-9 every year, and what did I get my twin brother for Christmas? Was the latest Bills hat, or beanie, or whatever, Rose said. Success is not success. They're always going to be a huge, strong component to the local economy. Larry.
Thank you, Dick. The local Buffalo News editorial. Yes, Virginia, a timeless and always reminder of the essential spirit of Christmas. This editorial was originally printed in the New York Sun on September 21st, 1897. It was the work of veteran newsman Francis Purcellus Church, who has become history's most reprinted newspaper editorial. Dear editor, I am 8 years old. Some of my little friends say there is no Santa Claus. Papa says, if you see it in the sun, it's so. Please tell me the truth. Is there a Santa Claus? And this from Virginia O'Hanlon, 115 West 95th Street. Virginia, your little friends are wrong. They have been affected by the skepticism of a skeptical age. They do not believe except what they see. They think that nothing can be which is not comprehensible by their little minds. All minds, Virginia, whether they be men's or children's, are little. In this great universe of ours, man is a mere insect, an ant, in his intellect as compared with the boundless world around him, as measured by the intelligence capable of grasping the whole of truth and knowledge. Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus. He exists as certainly as love and generosity and devotion exist, and you know that they abound and give to your life its highest beauty and joy. Alas, how dreary would be the world if there were no Santa Claus. It would be dreary as if there were no Virginias. There would be no childlike faith then, no poetry, no romance to make tolerable this existence. We should have no enjoyment except in sense and sight. The eternal light with which childhood fills the world would be extinguished. Not believe in Santa Claus? You might as well not believe in fairies. You might get your papa to hire men to watch in all the chimneys on Christmas Eve to catch Santa Claus. But even if they did not see Santa Claus coming down, what would that prove? Nobody sees Santa Claus, but that is no sign there is no Santa Claus. The most real things in the world are those that neither children nor men can see. Did you ever see fairies dancing on the lawn? Of course not, but there's no proof that they are not there. Nobody can conceive or imagine all the wonders that are unseen and unseeable in the world. You tear apart the baby's rattle and see what makes the noise inside, but there is a veil covering the unseen world which not the strongest man, nor even the united strength of all the strongest men that ever lived, could tear apart. Only faith, fancy, poetry, love, romance can push aside that curtain and view and picture the supernal beauty and glory beyond. Is it all real? Ah, Virginia, in all this world there is nothing else real and abiding. No Santa Claus? Thank God, he lives, and he lives forever. 1,000 years from now, nay, 10 times 10,000 years from now, he will continue to make glad the heart of childhood.
A healthy winter. Local doctors agree that it is not too late to get a flu vaccine. It may not be a perfect white Christmas this year, but at least the weather will not impede celebrations with families and friends. It also won't get in the way of classic last-minute shopping, as wonderfully described by the late Douglas Turner, former Washington bureau chief for the news, and reprinted in today's My View. For many of us, as much as we may cherish this holiday, which hopefully will reward all the work we put into it, we'll enjoy the days that follow even more. It's a nice lull, albeit one that not everyone is lucky enough to experience, that takes place between Christmas and New Year's. If you're among those who can take advantage, this is a time to enjoy those quintessential Buffalo experience. Quiet walk around White Lake, family trip to the Buffalo Erie County Botanical Gardens, a venture into the ice at Canal Side or Rotary Rink at Fountain Plaza. That is, if you're healthy. As the news' John Harris reported, flu is on the rise throughout western New York. Or as Dr. Thomas Russo, professor and chief of the Division of Infectious Disease in the University of Buffalo, Jacobs Schools of Medicine and Biomedical Science, put it, there's a boatload of flu out there right now, as far as we can tell. COVID and respiratory syncytial virus, RSV, are also out there. But this year, a rapidly circulating flu variant called subclade K, more able to evade immunity from prior infections or vaccinations, is driving the flu surge. New York State is being hit particularly hard. What to do? The advice from doctors is simple. Take precautions and start with getting vaccinated. Though the current vaccine is not a perfect match for this variant, it remains effective for other variants and will still help prevent serious illness and hospitalization. Unfortunately, vaccination numbers are dipping, both here and throughout the U.S., including the most vulnerable populations, children, pregnant women, and the elderly. Local experts such as Dr. John Selleck, an infectious disease expert at Kaleida Health, says now is a good time as ever to get the flu vaccine. That sounds like good advice to us. However, in whatever you celebrate, stay well and happy holidays.
Thank you, Dick. The editorial cartoons, and the first one is from Steve Breen of Creators Syndicate. And it shows a picture of the well-known Grinch with his green face, and he's got on a Santa Claus face, and he's got that typical Grinch leering sneer, and his teeth spell out the words inflation. Following is from Gary Varvel of Creators Syndicate, and this shows the Christmas star in a dark sky, and it's emitting rays in the form of a cross, and one of the rays leads down to what appears to be a stable, and it shows a dimly lit, hard to see scene, but it appears to be a family in there. And in the background we have three men on camels, and they're heading towards the stable. And the caption is, "He is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him." And that is from Hebrews 11:6.
This is from everybody's column. Chamberlain's mistake is being repeated. I do not understand why our government has chosen this approach it has taken to the Ukrainian war. I think Trump's actions are remarkably similar to those of Neville Chamberlain leading up to the Second World War. Chamberlain met with Hitler on several occasions in 1938 as the German army sat at the border of the Sudetenland portion of Czechoslovakia. Hitler claimed that beyond the Sudetenland, with its German-speaking inhabitants, he had no territorial ambitions in Europe. Chamberlain signed the Munich Agreement in September 1938, ceding the Sudetenland to Germany. Subsequent to that, of course, Hitler went into Czechoslovakia, then to Poland, and war was declared. Hitler then went into the Low Countries in France, Norway, and Denmark. Trump has met with Putin, who has apparently claimed in negotiations that he only wants the land they have already occupied during the Ukrainian war. Why should he be believed? I believe he wants all of the Ukraine, and I think once he has acquired that, he will move on to the former parts of the Russian Empire. Since when does the U.S. condone and support the attack on one country by another? Since when do we encourage the country under attack to give up its sovereign land? History has not looked on Chamberlain with kindness. It is not likely to look on Trump with kindness either. It's written by Russell Vaughn from Clarence Center.
Thank you, Dick. Pipeline development will raise rates. Former Chinese leader Mao Zedong didn't have much success with his Great Leap Forward plan in the early 1960s. U.S. skipping climate summit. For many, that's okay, November 7th. Okay, but now China is making a huge and successful Great Leap Forward, dominating the world in renewable energy development, including local manufacturing with dense groups of factories. While Europe is still the leader in wind turbines, the rest of the world is dependent on China for solar panels. President Trump has declared a great leap backward, abandoning clean energy development when we're desperate for more sources of energy and creating harmful pollution from gas turbines data centers owners are building to meet their immense power needs. He even wants to revive coal plants, the worst of the worst in pollution. Governor Kathy Hochul is following suit. She has okayed the thrice-rejected Williams Pipeline from Oklahoma-based Transco, raising prices for National Grid customers in Erie, Niagara, Wyoming, and Orleans counties, among others. Transco admits that the cost of building and maintaining the pipeline rests on ratepayers, who will be burdened with higher utility bills for unnecessary gas for years to come. That's not including the volatility of gas prices. A coalition of groups is suing the state for this illegal pipeline decision. May sense overcome nonsense. This from Kitty Goldman of Buffalo.
Unexplained attacks damage reputation of U.S. Words matter. So the media needs to recalibrate. The people who are getting blown up and detained by our fearless and feckless bully military are not terrorists or drug dealers or people who want to destroy the United States. Or maybe they are those things, but until we know with some kind of proof, they should be called people or perhaps human beings. I have never heard that these people have ever been identified, so how can we know who or what they are? These are not video games we are watching. These are real people whose lives are being destroyed without due process. And in the process, our government is destroying the reputation of our country. They are turning us into undermined democracy where the rule of law is losing its meaning. So sad and unacceptable. It's written by Beverly Halligan from Orchard Park.
You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 30 minutes past the hour. Following is an editorial from Froma Harrop. Only in the movies does Trump appear as Mr. New York Christmas. Fifth Avenue swarms with tourists grinning at the fabulous scene as retailers cash in on the cheer. Christmas in New York is a Rockettes kick line of stores, windows awash in fantasy and light spectaculars. But something is missing from the big show this year. That would be Donald Trump. In truth, the president hasn't made much of a Gotham showing in years. Striking, given how hard he once worked to make Christmas in New York all about him, before he moved on to making the world all about him, all the time. Sure, Trump Tower still looms over Fifth and just a few steps from the Gilded Plaza Hotel. Earlier in his presidency, Trump Tower was itself one of the sights, with tourists taking selfies with armed guards behind. Now it is just another of the notable buildings on the avenue. However, the Christmas movies featuring Trump as grantor of holiday cheer got replayed every year around this time. The most famous is Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, from 1992. Lost boy Macaulay Culkin finds himself in an ornate corridor of the plaza as enchanting children's music plays in the background. As Trump is about to pass him, the boy says, "Excuse me, where's the lobby?" Appointing Trump says, "Down the hall and to the left." The boy says, "Thanks." That's the scene. Trump owned the plaza at the time, although his creditors held a reported 49% of the equity. Trump demanded that the director include a cameo starring him as the price of admission to film there. Another example of Trump inserting himself into a Christmas movie as the quintessential rich and benevolent New Yorker comes in the 2011 film Mr. Popper's Penguins. In the story, crates containing live penguins are delivered to the posh apartment of a Mr. Popper, a divorced father played by Jim Carrey. The penguins lead Popper on adventures containing references to Trump. Popper and the penguins go skating at what was then the Trump-Woolman Rink in Central Park. The camera pauses on the name Trump in capital letters, virtually leaving out Woolman. The rink has since gone back to its original name, simply the Woolman Rink. A film reviewer at the National Catholic Register wrote at the time, "What is up with this Donald Trump as product placement?" Product placement is a marketing deal where a brand's product or name is inserted into a movie as part of a scene. It's a sneaky form of advertising. There's another sequence in the landmark Tavern on the Green where Popper quips, "You can't even get a reservation here unless you're dating the Donald." The real story back then was that the famed Central Park restaurant had fallen on hard times. Trump was then talking big to the New York media about plans to spend $20 million to rebuild Tavern and make it the highest grossing restaurant on the planet. But then the city's Parks Department asked potential operators to submit bids. Trump was nowhere to be seen. Bizarrely, the movie pretends that Trump already has something to do with the place, the reviewer complained. As Christmas movies go, Mr. Popper's Penguins was no Miracle on 34th Street. a film about an elderly man named Kris Kringle, whom Macy's hired to play Santa, but who insists he's the true Santa Claus. Though Miracle appeared to be a ginormous ad for Macy's, the store apparently didn't pay 20th Century Fox for its essential role. On the contrary, Macy's demanded that Fox show the movie to its executives before they allowed its name to be used. What a different culture it was back in 1947.
No health care, but you can celebrate with Trump for free. Soon, you may no longer be able to afford health care since Republicans have once again blocked efforts to subsidize the Affordable Care Act. The most recent government shutdown became the longest in history because Democrats insisted on continuing to fund health care while the GOP balked. The Republicans won, America lost. But don't despair. When President Trump's 80th birthday rolls around on June 14th, which happens to coincide with Flag Day, you will be able to visit a national park for free. See? Trump really is making America great again. Kidding aside, most aren't going to celebrate Trump's birthday. He hasn't earned that. He can accept all the fake awards he wants, but he's no hero. He's a billionaire who has the nerve to claim that the word affordability is a Democrat scam. Remember that the next time you're at the grocery store. Trump promised to bring down costs. It hasn't happened. Trump also said he would fix health care. That hasn't happened either. He said he was going to fix the situation at the border. We now have masked ICE agents terrorizing undocumented immigrants and U.S. citizens alike. Entry into America is for sale, y'all. As long as you have $1 million to pay for a green card. Make that a gold card with Trump's image on it. The president's actions remind me of a narcissist whose world begins and ends with himself. This nation, however, is expansive and needs a president who puts the American people first. That's not what we have with Trump. His administration's decision to make entrance at national parks free on his birthday wouldn't be quite as egregious if it hadn't also revoked free admission for visitors on not one, but two federal holidays that honor Black history, June 10th and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday. It feels just another way to antagonize African Americans who still haven't gotten over his calling Somalia's garbage and saying they should leave the country. But wait, there's more. The Trump administration has ordered the National Park Service to clear the shelves of its gift shops, bookstores, and concession stands of any merchandise that runs afoul of its anti-diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. Trump only wants to present a sanitized version of American history. So no mention of slavery and Jim Crow and that sort of thing, but lots of red, white, and blue like he sells in his Trump store. As with practically everything else, he sticks his suspiciously bruised hand into it's making a mess of things at the Park Service. And I'm not just talking about the way officials have slapped the president's scowling face on the prized annual park pass. An environmental group is suing him for that. I hope the lawsuit wins. The Trump administration also has cut numerous jobs and service at national parks, imposed a $100 fee for foreign visitors to certain parks, and stripped conservation protection for public lands. I shudder to think what could be next. Selling off parks to the highest bidder? I wouldn't have passed him to try. We've seen what he did to the East Wing of the White House. Healthcare premiums for more than 24 million people may soon skyrocket, with government subsidies to bring down costs for everyday people. Remember who was to blame when your insurance premiums suddenly spike? The day can't come soon enough when Trump finally is out of office for good. That's when we, the people, can get about undoing all the damage he has done. And that includes reinstating admission fees at national parks on Trump's birthday. That article written by Janice Armstrong.
Thank you, Dick. From Buffalo Next. Shoppers spent big despite fiscal worries. Consumers spent 3.9% more than same period last year. Tariffs, a government shutdown, rising unemployment, and persistent inflation have all added stress to the U.S. economy, and whether any of that might put a dent on consumer spending has been a subject of speculation. As part of the answer came Tuesday when MasterCard released its annual data on annual holiday shopping spending. Shoppers spent 3.9% from November 1st to December 21st this year compared with last year, according to the report called Spending Pulse, which measures retail sales in stores and online through payment data. A second part of the report from Visa's Consulting and Analytics Division found that from November 1st through Sunday, cash and credit card sales rose 4.2%, which is less than the 4.8% increase during the same period a year ago. The figures, which exclude automotive sales and are not adjusted for inflation, show that spending has remained resilient, with consumers visiting stores and restaurants, even as prices have risen. Still, the report also showed that shoppers looked for value, comparing prices in stores and online and buying items at a discount. The results provide a peek into the mindset of U.S. consumers as they enter 2026, trying to manage their households amid an uncertain economy. Though Americans are dealing with the rising costs of groceries, childcare, and rent as job growth slows, many are still opening their wallets to buy holiday gifts and items on their own wish lists. Some are doing so by deferring the bill. According to an October PayPal report, half of consumers said they plan to buy now, pay later plans to finance holiday purchases. There are still consumers who are a little on edge, said Michelle Mayer, chief economist of the MasterCard Economics Institute. But that hasn't constrained them from spending in the short term. Part of the squeeze on consumers has come from tariffs, with retailers in recent months passing on the costs of the duties to shoppers to protect their profit margins. Target, Gap, and IKEA have all said they've raised prices on some items in response to rising input costs. Retailers have worked to balance those costs with discounts to entice shoppers throughout the holidays. Concerns about consumer spending swirled before the holiday shopping season. The Commerce Department said sales at U.S. retailers and restaurants were flat in October after seeing modest growth in September. But categories such as clothing, furniture stores remained strong. As the holidays kicked off in November, Doug McMillon, Walmart CEO, warned investors on a conference call that lower-income families who rely more on cheaper imported goods had come under more pressure than wealthier ones who were holding steady. As we look at our customers and members here in the U.S., they're still spending, with upper and middle-income households driving our growth, McMillon said. But this holiday season, it was evident that consumers are still willing to spend whatever they could afford, according to the MasterCard report. The strength of the holiday numbers was considerable enough that the spending didn't come solely from isolated pockets of wealthy shoppers, Meyer said. More than 200 million people shopped on Thanksgiving weekend this year, a slight uptick from last year, according to the National Retail Federation, an industry trade group. MasterCard said that Black Friday retail sales in the United States grew 4.1% this year, driven by increased spending across categories including apparel and jewelry. The clothing sector performed particularly well, with stores using discounts to lure shoppers. Holiday spending on apparel rose 7.8%, aided by cold snaps in part of the country that prompted a refresh of winter wardrobes, according to MasterCard. Jewelry, a popular gifting category, jumped 1.6%.
U.S. economy surged in third quarter of 25 despite tariffs. The U.S. economy grew at a vigorous pace through the end of September despite the uncertainty created by tariffs and widespread concerns about the affordability among households. Economic growth rose at 4.3 annual rate in the third quarter. The Commerce Department reported Tuesday an acceleration from the previous quarter. The third quarter reading showed that even in the face of negative consumer sentiment and a softening job market, the roughly $30 trillion economy started October on relatively solid footing as a whole, outperforming the bearish expectations of some experts only months before. It shows an economy that is mostly solid, actually still firing on most cylinders, if not all cylinders. Though I still think we have a lot of noise in the quarter-to-quarter data, said Michael Pierce, chief U.S. economist at Oxford Economics. Most of the strength is coming from wealthier households. Increased military spending also helped power growth forward in the middle of the year. Disposable personal income after taxes and adjusted for inflation was flat, a sign of nagging inflation still eating into purchasing power. Total corporate profits rose $166 billion in the third quarter, compared with an increase of $6.8 billion in the previous quarter, a sharp improvement, though business investment cooled. A barometer of the underlying growth, it measures both private investments and household consumption held steady, a signal for underlying strength. That the economy has remained as resilient is the latest indication that President Trump's tariffs have not had the giant depressive effect that many economists had once feared. Although tariffs have undoubtedly raised the cost of some goods, consumers have continued to spend. Consumption, which constitutes 70% of the economic pie in a typical year, rose at 3.5 annualized pace in the quarter. Even as consumption takes the reins back from investment, the economy maintains considerable momentum, said Paul Ashworth, chief North American economist at Capital Economics. The White House on Tuesday heralded the latest reading in a series of posts on social media. The Council of Economic Advisors said that strong consumer spending in the third quarter evidenced the public's confidence in the economy, while the uptick in exports in recent months underscored that Trump's tariff and trade policies have touched off an export boom. Lower-income families are wrestling with slowing wage growth and rising cost of various household goods like beef and coffee, furniture. Still, even as some major corporations have announced workforce reductions, the limited extent of overall layoffs is still buttressing anxiety. And much of the consumption growth has come from spending by affluent and upper middle class Americans who have continued paying for travel, recreation, restaurants, and other discretionary purchases. Spending related to artificial intelligence contributes almost half of the year-over-year growth in GDP in the first half of the year, according to estimates by Principal Asset Management. Most analysts expect that these investments are likely to persist. But the data from the third quarter shows that the trend may be lumpier than some have projected, as intellectual property investment decline, as well as investments in structures, compared with the previous month. Other newly released numbers also showed orders for durable goods also fell in October. Even an expansion built out in data center marches on.
Thank you, Dick. As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Abruzino, Angelo C. Bress, Ronald A. Britting, Joseph. Bromley, Loretta Penny, Nee Barone. Sizik, Robert J. Doyle, Matthew John. Felches, Keith. Filipiak, Barbara. Garbett, Gary. Gay, Patricia. Glose, Deborah. Hodgson, Brant R. Jakubowski, Christine M., née Andrzejewski. James, Lyndon. Keller, Linda. Merwin, Kathleen. Mutil, Dennis H. Rossi, Cheryl M., née Cummings. Walczyk, Dennis S. Also, May Brett, 91, whose marriage to Sammy Davis Jr. sparked hate. Chris Rea, 74, versatile Grammy-nominated British rocker. James Ransone, 46, actor best known for The Wire. If you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555.
We will now read the horoscopes. Happy birthday for Wednesday, December 24. You're vigorous and determined to achieve your goals. You're a pioneering innovator and a devoted friend. This is your final year of a 9-year cycle for you. Take inventory of your life, let go of people, places, and things that have held you back. Do some internal house cleaning. The stars show the kind of day you'll have. Dynamic, positive, average. Aries, March 21 to April 19th. Others admire you because you look good. Not only are you attractive, you're energetic and proactive. A friend might surprise you today. Tonight, enjoy quiet times. Taurus, April 20, May 20. Do the diplomatic today because you are high, which means people notice you are more than usual, in addition to which you might rebel against authority today. Think of your image. Tonight, be friendly. Gemini, May 21, June 20. Pay attention to everything you say and do today because this is a mildly accidental prone day for you. Be vigilant while traveling. Tonight, you're admired. Cancer, June 21, July 22. Get your rest. Be patient with partners and close friends. You might be irritated by someone due to fiery Mars being opposite your sign this month. Tonight, explore. Leo, July 23, August 22. It's easy for you to be busy and industrious today because you have energy and enthusiasm. You will charm others in your efforts to get things done tonight. Check your finances. Virgo, August 2-3, September 2-2. Issues related to your work or your job might be interrupted today. Equipment might break down, work-related accidents, as well as unexpected events related to your pet might occur. Tonight, be cooperative. Libra, September 2-3, October 2-2. Parents should be extra vigilant today because this is an accident-prone day for your children. Meanwhile, social plans might suddenly change or be canceled. Tonight, get organized. Scorpio, October 2-3, November 2-1. Your home routine will be interrupted today. Small appliances may break down, or a minor breakage could occur. Unexpected company might arrive. Tonight, social. Sagittarius, November 2-2, December 2-1. Pay attention to everything you say and do today because this is an accident-prone day for you. Think before you speak. Slow down. Do things carefully. Tonight, home and family. Capricorn, December 2-2, January 19. This is a powerful day for you because the Sun, Venus, and Mars is your sign of boosting your energy, as well as making you charming and diplomatic. However, sometime unexpected might impact your finances. Tonight, discussions. Aquarius, January 20 to February 18. Today, the moon is in your sign at odds with your ruler Uranus, making you feel rebellious, independent, restless, and stubborn. Tonight, check your belongings. Pisces, February 19, March 20. This is a popular week, and today is popular. Enjoy the company of others, even though an element of competitiveness might be present. Tonight, you win.
Thank you, Dick. Following is Hints from Heloise. Wishing everyone a happy holiday. Tonight is Christmas Eve, and I'm reminded of something I heard a wise man say many years ago. You may not particularly like someone, but try to love them in the spirit of mankind. It's at this special time of year that we seem to remember the turbulent times of the past 12 months. But we try to remain hopeful that one day the whole world might stop all wars, practice tolerance, look for the good, and change whatever is bad. It's a time to forgive, even if you can't forget. It's also a time to work toward a better world, a peaceful world that we can hand off to the next generation. From all of us at Heloise Central, happy holidays and have a joyful new year from Heloise. Now we get on to the hymns. Floss picks. Dear Heloise, a recent reader commented that she washes her hands and uses hand sanitizer before flossing. I suggest that she look into using floss picks. These handy items have a small section of floss that is attached to a plastic handle. They greatly reduce how much time your hands are in your mouth. They also can be a substitute for a toothpick. This from Dan O. via email. Call the utility company. Dear Heloise, I wanted to write in about the idea of planting shrubberies. First, it is required by law that one must call to locate buried utilities before digging. Second, not all utilities are buried at a minimum depth. Some may only be placed a few inches below grade level. Third, this could actually be quite dangerous if it comes into contact with buried power lines or gas lines. This from Glenn P. via email. Glenn, excellent advice. By planting trees in the correct areas of your yard, you might also avoid utility problems from the tree roots in the years to come. Most cities will not charge for someone to come out and locate the water lines, electrical lines, etc. This is a case of better to be safe than sorry. Dick?
This is from the Political Notebook. Suit aims to restore Kennedy Center name. Representative Joyce Beatty, Democrat, Ohio, sued President Trump on Monday seeking to force the removal of his name from the John F. Kennedy Center for Performing Arts. Beatty's lawsuit names as defendants Trump and the loyalists he appointed to the center's board. The suit contains that the board's vote to change the name last week was illegal because an act of Congress is required to rename the building. Beatty is represented by Norman Eisen, a White House ethics counsel in the Obama administration, along with Nathaniel Zelensky, as co-counsel of the Washington litigation group. Eisen said the name change violates the Constitution and the rule of law because Congress said this is the name. He doesn't have a right to change the name. A senior White House official told the New York Times last week that the administration reflected the interpretation that the White House did not anticipate Congress getting involved to override the board's decision.
You're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, December 24th, 2025 on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are
Dick Shanley
and Larry Beenan.
Hello, this is Marian Heatherly, Community Engagement Coordinator for your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, and I'd like to talk to you as another year comes to a close. We've been reflecting on what we've accomplished in 2025 and what needs to be done in the new year, and you, our listeners, are at the heart of everything. The most important message we want to share this holiday season is thank you to all of our listeners who have supported radio reading in 2025. By listening, by making a donation, by attending an event, by spreading the word about us, by connecting a new listener with us. You're incredibly important to us as we review our accomplishments of the past year and plan for the future, so we can keep our programming free for everyone who needs it and reach more people who would benefit. On behalf of the entire team at Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, may the joys of the holiday season be with you all.
Go.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Larry Beenan
and Dick Shanley.
from the local news. Turtle trafficking case shocks judge with its cruelty scope. A federal judge who sentenced Wei Kang Lin to 2 years in prison Tuesday noted the particular cruelty in the way the Brooklyn man bound and taped turtles inside knotted up sacks and parcels he sent to Hong Kong as part of an illegal wildlife trafficking scheme. The cruelty of this really struck me, U.S. District Judge Lawrence Villardo said as he sentenced Lin on his plea of falsely labeling live turtles as fake toys. The sheer volume involved is staggering as well. Between August 2023 and November 24th, Lin exported to Hong Kong approximately 222 parcels containing around 850 turtles, labeling the boxes as containing plastic animal toys, among other things, according to prosecutors. The market value of the turtles was $1.4 million. Asian buyers covered them as pets and also for their perceived traditional medicinal benefits. Turtle smugglers often use sacks, diapers, and tape to conceal the live turtles. The tape restricts the turtles' movement to prevent them from scratching and making noise, which may lead to their discovery by law enforcement. Sacks, diapers, and paper towels also serve to absorb urine and fecal matter and prevent moisture from degrading the outside box, which could lead to detection, according to a court affidavit from Special Agent Ryan Bessie of the Fish and Wildlife Service. I can't imagine doing that to a living creature, Villardo said. Law enforcement intercepted the turtles during a border inspection. Lin also exported 11 other parcels filled with reptiles, including venomous snakes, for the weeks-long journey to Hong Kong. This is not a run-of-the-mill ordinary wildlife trafficking case, said Assistant U.S. Attorney Aaron Mango. The volume in this case is shocking. Beyond the harm to the turtles, some of them threatened or endangered species, Lin put postal workers and couriers at risk, shipping 5 green tree vipers and 2 palm pit vipers hidden in plastic tubes in a box labeled plastic animal toys, prosecutors said. Sentencing guidelines suggested a prison term of 2 to 2.5 years. Lin, who has already served 13 months in custody, will be deported to China after completing his sentence. Defense lawyer Alexandra Milch asked for a sentence of time served. Lin had some understanding what he did was wrong, but he did not grasp the full scope and gravity of his crimes as he exported the turtles, Milch said. Lin declined to speak in court. Mango told Villardo a time-served sentence would be a miscarriage of justice. These are living creatures the defendants decided to bind and confine in socks, putting their lives at risk just to make some money, Mango added. Lin, 55, was prosecuted in western New York because U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service special agents in Amherst pursued the case. The case started in 2022 when an undercover special agent received a Facebook private message inquiring about box turtles. The message was sent to the agent's covert Facebook page. The message came from a Facebook user revealed to the investigation to be a co-conspirator of Lin's residing in China. The co-conspirator sent the Facebook message asking about buying 50 and 100 box turtles, not knowing he sent the message to a federal agent, according to Bessie's affidavit. Box turtles are highly desired in the international exotic pet trade, particularly in China and Hong Kong. The market price for North American box turtles varies depending on the size, sex, condition, and markings of the animal. The eastern box turtles, Mexican box turtles, Yucatan box turtles, three-toed box turtles, and Gulf Coast box turtles are worth on average $2,000 each in the Asian market. Individual female turtles with rare markings have sold for more than $20,000 in Asia. Lynn primarily trafficked in eastern box turtles and three-toed box turtles protected by the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. Some of the eastern box turtles came from western New York. 9 parcels seized by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service inspectors at John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York contained 28 Mexican box turtles and 6 Yucatan box turtles. In the past 11 years, at least 150 smuggling and wildlife trafficking convictions involved the sale or false labeling of turtles, Mango said. From at least August 2023 to November 2024, Lynn broke federal customs and wildlife laws, prosecutors said. Organizers in China recruited U.S. poachers and suppliers to collect turtles and mail them to Lynn, who then repackaged them and exported them to Hong Kong using false descriptions on the parcels to deceive customs officials. Lynn shipped the turtles during the hot summer and cold winter days, prosecutors noted. Turtles are cold-blooded reptiles that cannot regulate their body temperature and can be killed by temperature swings. Lynn was part of a larger illicit market for turtles native to New York and along the East Coast, according to Mango and other prosecutors in the case, including trial attorney Rachel Roberts and senior trial attorney Ryan Connors, both of the U.S. Justice Department's Environmental Crime Section. It looks like you led a good life until you got involved in this, Villardo told Lynn. Don't do this kind of thing again. It's cruel. It affects the world in a negative way.
3.3 settlement okayed in 16 Molly's pub case. The Common Council on Tuesday approved nearly $3.3 million in settlement in lawsuits stemming from the 2014 death of an Air National Guardsman during an altercation involving off-duty police officers at a Main Street bar. Council members unanimously approved the settlement with $3 million going to the estate of the deceased, William C. Sager Jr., and another $290,000 to Sager's friend Donald Hall, who was handcuffed and placed on the sidewalk next to the bleeding, unconscious friend by one of 2 Buffalo officers working security at Molly's pub that night. Byron Bowman, the council president pro temp, said in an interview with the News that he first wanted to recognize how terrible the situation must be for Sager's family. That's not what I know Buffalo police officers to be, and just the actions were awful, Bowman said. In a statement released by the family, Erica Webster, Sager's fiancée at the time of his death, said the settlement does not change what happened to Sager, but she is glad the city has acknowledged its part in his death. Bill lived his life with great meaning and purpose, and all we wanted was to ensure that the meaning was extended beyond his premature loss of life, she said. William Sager Sr., Sager's dad, said the family does not remember him as the victim of a crime, but a man who served his country and was faithful and loving to the people he was close with. Bill is deeply missed by everyone who loved him. Jeffrey Basil, the manager of the bar at the time of the incident, pushed Sager down the stairs of the bar, fracturing his skull in May of 2014. Sager spent most than 2 months in a coma before dying. Basil was later convicted of murder, but that conviction was vacated because of juror misconduct. Basil then pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter and is suffering an 18-year sentence. Sager's family and Hall first filed their lawsuits against the city and other involved parties in 2015. Robert Eloff, the officer who handcuffed both Sager and Hall after the incident, resigned from the department in 2016. He was charged with civil rights violations and pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor charge later that year. He was sentenced to 3 months in prison and 3 months of home confinement. Adam O'Shea, the other officer working security at the bar, was granted immunity by the Erie County District Attorney for his cooperation in the investigation. He now works as a lieutenant for the Buffalo Police Department's B District. The city has paid out tens of millions of dollars in settlements in recent years, excuse me, including high-profile cases such as the remaining members of the Buffalo Five, who received $8.7 million settlement last year for the wrongful murder conviction under which they spent decades in prison. The council in 2023 approved $43 million settlement to Chelsea Ellis, who was paralyzed after being struck by a Buffalo Police Department vehicle while walking down a sidewalk on Main Street in 2020. Council Majority Leader Leah Halton Pope said all city employees are public servants and need to be better serve residents. First, to keep them safe, but also to protect the city and its taxpayers from preventable situations that lead to large settlements. We have to do better overall, she said. She praised the Corporation Council's litigation department, saying their work in coming to settlements has likely saved the city millions of dollars, pointing to the $80 million awarded by a jury to the family of Darrell Ward, one of the Buffalo Five, in the lawsuit against Erie County. When we look at these claims, more often than not, they're for the same types of reasons, Halton Pope said. At some point, we have to look at what we're doing and how do we create policies that curb that behavior permanently. Bowman said he's hopeful that the incoming administration of Mayor-elect Sean Ryan will do more to put policies in place to try to prevent the harm done and limit the city's liability, especially as city leadership deals with difficult financial issues. We really have to take a hard look oversight on every single department, he said.
Thank you, Dick. New law limits sales of Kratom. Albany. Nick Scribner took Kratom, a Southeast Asian plant product sold in convenience stores and smoke shops, to help him with his anxiety, increase his energy, and build up his immune system. Within 6 to 8 weeks, he was hooked on it. Then, while experiencing a respiratory arrest caused by Kratom intoxication, the 27-year-old Saratoga County man died. On Monday, joined by Carrie Scribner, Nick Scribner's mother, Governor Kathy Hochul signed 2 bills into law. One will prohibit the sale of Kratom products to anyone under 21. The other will require the herbal stimulant to carry a label warning of its addictive qualities and drug interactions. Hochul said Kratom is listed as the cause of death in over 100 overdose cases in the state within a 1-year period. These aren't abstract statistics, Hochul said in a state capitol bill signing ceremony that included the sponsors of the bill and State Department of Health Commissioner James McDonald. It's real people, it's your neighbors, it's your friend, and in some cases, it's your son. Carrie Scribner, that said, following her son's death in November 2024, she learned Kratom was not widely regulated. She attended town meetings and picketed stores that sold the product. Her advocacy led to the legislation sponsored by Assembly Member John McDonald, Democrat Cohoes, and Senator Patricia Fahey, Democrat Albany, to prohibit the sale of Kratom to anyone under 21. Violators face a fine of up to $500 per offense. The second bill, sponsored by Assembly Member Phil Steck, Democrat Colony, and Senator James Skoufis, Democrat Cornwall, will require consumer warning labels be placed on any Kratom product that is manufactured, distributed, or sold in New York. That bill will also ban the product from being sold as all-natural. Both bills passed unanimously. I feel there will be fewer Nick Scribners who succumb to this drug and more people engaging in the ripple effect that something like this has, Carrie Scribner said. We don't need to lose more young people to this. The word has spread, and I'm very grateful. Kratom has been used in Southeast Asia for centuries and can be safe in its natural form, experts say. But it is chemically altered to become more potent and addictive when placed in drinks and pills, according to a memo from the Stec-Scofus bill. It said the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has warned consumers not to use Kratom due to possible side effects such as nausea, aggression, hallucinations, breathing trouble, liver damage, and death. In Buffalo, Kratom was initially sold in head shops and online. Then it was available at least one local business that no longer appears to be operating, Hochul said. Kratom has become more widespread because of the absence of warnings and age restrictions. The governor said in a minor natural component of Kratom, 7-hydroxymetrionine, or 7-OH, can have a strong opioid effect when in concentrated form. Kids from high school can walk into a store and buy this, Hochul told reporters. And it is a stimulant that has opiate-like effects, so it can be used to increase energy, manage anxiety, alleviate pain, and even supposedly ease the pain of opiate withdrawal, except it has its own addictive properties that no one knew about. 6 states, Vermont, Rhode Island, Alabama, Arkansas, Indiana, and Wisconsin, outlaw Kratom altogether. Asked if she would consider a statewide ban on Kratom, said Hochul, the law was a first step. I'm willing to consider anything to save lives in the state of New York, she said. Mac Hadow, senior fellow on public policy at the American Kratom Association, said his group supports restricting the sale of Kratom to consumers under 21, as well as appropriate labeling. But he said Hochul has gotten it wrong by including 7-OH products as a form of Kratom. Those are not Kratom, and the governor is wrong to call it Kratom, and the families are wrong to call it Kratom. Hadow said calling it 7-OH products a synthetic chemical manipulated opioid. The distinction is critically important because for too long these 7-OH companies have been masquerading as Kratom and masquerading and leading consumers and misleading consumers, and in this case victims, when it's actually a chemically manipulated product. He said the state needs to prohibit products that have a higher level of 7-OH than the trace amounts naturally occurring in the Kratom drying process. There's more work to be done. In July, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration recommended that 7-OH products be scheduled as a controlled substance.
Radio legend Harv Moore, 90, dies. Shared stage with the Beatles. Harv Moore Jr. saw a lot, heard a lot, laughed a lot during his nearly 6 decades as a rock and roll radio disc jockey. He stood on stage with the Beatles during their first American concert on February 11, 1964, got to know Neil Diamond, Brian Wilson, and other legendary hitmakers, and made Buffalo listeners roar with laughter with his Land of Fa comedy routine with his radio partner Robert W. Taylor during the 1970s and 1980s. He also helped dozens of young people get into radio careers during his long tenure in Buffalo radio. Mr. Moore died December 21, 2025 in Millard Fillmore Hospital following a short illness. The town of Tonawanda resident was 90. Harv was one of the most beloved people in Buffalo radio because he helped so many of us get into the business, said WEC disc jockey John J.P. Pachillo, one of Mr. Moore's closest friends. He was a kind, generous guy who served as a friend, a teacher, and mentor to many. He will be missed. Born and educated in Pelham, New York City, Mr. Moore loved all kinds of music and dreamed of working in radio since he was a boy. His dad insisted they first earn a college degree, so he attended Boston University, where he played on the hockey team and earned a degree in languages. Following his dream, he got his first DJ job at a small station in Frankfort, Kentucky. In 1961, moving on 2 years later at WPGC, one of the most popular stations in Washington, D.C. He worked there for 12 years, earning the nickname as the city's morning mayor. He was always proud to have been associated with the Beatles' first American concert, which was in the Washington Coliseum in February of 1964. Harv was one of 2 DJs from the station who were on stage with the Beatles and welcomed him to Washington and recalled his wife, the former Vicki Dowd. I was there in the 10th row. As the show ended, there was all kinds of mayhem, and Howard was running away from the stage, and he fell and landed on top of me. She said she didn't actually meet Mr. Moore until a few months later when she went to his radio station to pick up a shirt she had won in a contest. They began dating and married in 1968. Rising to the position of musical director and program director at the Washington station, Mr. Moore also wrote, performed, and produced some of the records during his theme there. He wrote and recorded a song called I Told Santa I Want You, which became a minor holiday hit. Blessed with an ear for hit songs, Mr. Moore was proud of the fact that he helped break several songs as major hits by playing them constantly on his radio show. Those included several of Neil Diamond's earliest records, California Dreamin' by the Mamas and the Papas and Brandy by the Looking Glass. Neil Diamond stayed at Howard's home one time during one of his earliest visits to Washington when he was not yet a big star, Vicki Moore recalled. Steve Chishan, a longtime radio personality in Buffalo and a radio historian, has written that Mr. Moore was directly responsible for the popularity of Brandy, which was recorded in 1972 and was going nowhere. That probably would have been the end of it had it not been for a disc jockey in Washington, D.C. named Harvey Moore. Elliot Lurie, the group primary songwriter, told the newspapers the Tennessean in 2016. Mr. Moore was at WPGC at the time and promoted for Epic stopped by the WPGC studios with a test pressing of the Brandy single. I listened to it and I said, wow, this is a smash, a home run, Mr. Moore recalled. Mr. Moore started playing it once an hour on the show, and then the station and all of Washington loved the song, and it was bound for #1 on the Billboard charts. In 1975, Mr. Moore made his move to Buffalo, where he was hired as a program director and morning DJ at WYSL AM and its sister station, WPHD FM. He was later promoted to executive vice president and general manager of the station. Calling himself Humble Harv, he earned a big Buffalo following with his jokes and comedy routine, especially during the years he spent during the morning show with his friend Taylor. Their Land of Fa routine was especially popular from 1978 to 1989. Their show was known as the Taylor and Moore Breakfast Flakes, and some of the routines were recorded on a compact disc that became a local hit. Mr. Moore later spent several years running a small local record company with his close friend Jerry Myers. He then worked on the air WHTT FM Oldies 104 for 9 years. He finished his radio career in 2020 after working a couple years at WEC. Among many Buffalo radio personalities whom Mr. Moore hired and pensioned were Pasillo, Larry Norton, Carl Russo, Slick Tom Tiberi, John Hagar, Jim McGee, and Buddy Shula, who now owns WEC. Howard loved anything that had to do with radio and music, his wife said. Mr. Moore sang and played guitar, keyboard, and drums. He loved cheering for the Buffalo Bills and was a devout Christian who read the Bible cover to cover 3 times, his wife said. Beside his wife, Mr. Moore is survived by a daughter, Dana, a son, Bill, and 10 grandchildren. A celebration of life will be held by the family at a later date.
Thank you, Dick. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 23 minutes past the hour. And turning to sports. The Sabres won in overtime last night, 3-2, beating Ottawa. Spread the Christmas cheer. The Ottawa overtime win sends the Sabres into break as NHL's hottest team. Ottawa, pour some spicy eggnog and let visions of playoff springs past dance in your heads. The Buffalo Sabres have hit the holiday break, driving the NHL's hardest-charging sleigh. A season that seemed lost yet again just 2 short weeks ago when the team was 2,100 miles from Buffalo in Calgary is now filled with wonderment. A present to its long-suffering fan base about the future finally not being far off. The hockey fans might not even recognize this team from the one that aimlessly started the months with 3 straight dreary losses and a road trip that marked the end for general manager Kevyn Adams. It's winning hockey, said Sabres winger and massive Bills fan Alex Tuck. This is what we've been building towards, and this is the type of hockey we're going to have to play if we want to make a push. You see maturity. You see individuals sacrificing and just doing the right thing. It's fun. I'm proud of this group. The streaks are everywhere for the Sabres. The 7-game run is Buffalo's longest since its 10-gamer in 2018 and hits the holiday break as the longest in the NHL. The Sabres have won 6 in a row over Ottawa, a key Atlantic Division rival they figured to battle for a playoff spot through the second half of the schedule. Buffalo has won 5 straight on the road after starting the season 2-9-2 on foreign ice. The Sabres are 4-0 under new general manager Jarmo Kekalainen. Byram leads the Buffalo defense with 8 goals and is on his way to shattering his career high of 10 set with Colorado in 2022-23. Byram had 7 for the Sabres last year in playing all 82 games. Sometimes the puck just seems to find you, or situations open up that you can join, Byram said. That's just how it worked tonight. I'm just trying to help the team any way I can. Key moments. Alex Lyon made 24 saves, none biggest than one sprawled flat on his back off Ottawa's Drake Batherson with 2:04 left. Lyon's stats during the winter streak: he's 6-0 with a 2.25 goals against average and a .922 save percentage. He wasn't really tested on the late penalty kill as McLeod won a big face-off and the Sabres were able to get multiple clears of the puck. Dick?
Shift in philosophy is working for the Sabres. New manager Kekalainen, I'm not sure the pronunciation is spelled Kekalainen. Ottawa, new general manager Jarmo Kekalainen is as impressed with the Buffalo Sabres lately as the team's fans. The Sabres entered Tuesday's game against the Ottawa Senators and Canadian Tire Center on a 6-game winning streak that stood as their longest since 2022 and the longest current run in the NHL. They were 3-0 since Kekalainen took over from the deposed Kevin Adams. I think we've been disciplined. I think we're playing to win rather than playing to score another goal. And I think that's important as a team matures and learns to play the right way. Kekalainen said the meeting with reporters prior to the team's morning state. Understand that there are certain situations when you're up 3-1, 4-2, or whatever it may be, that you don't have to score another goal. You just need to play the right way to win. Ask about the balance between making moves who put an early imprint on the roster and not upsetting a locker room that is at its highest point in several seasons. Kekalainen admitted that he is towing a different line. It's a good question, he said. I think there's no need to disrupt anything right now with a good flow going. We're going to keep watching and evaluating and always try to do what's best for the team and for the individuals on it. Kekalainen was particularly impressed by Sunday's 3-1 win in New Jersey, a game Buffalo dominated in the second period and controlled through the third. The last 2 periods were critical, I called. He said, I thought we played really well in the second and third period in New Jersey, but it's amazing what confidence does. I always said if you could bottle that thing and just sell it, you'd be a billionaire because it's everything. These guys know what they're doing, and they can do it eyes closed. But then sometimes the confidence gets a little shaky, but it looks like they don't know what they're doing. But then when the confidence comes back, it's just easy. You rely on your instinct and play the game like they did in the backyard when they were kids. So it's great to see. The Sabres are still carrying 3 goalies, and that might be one of Kekalainen's first areas to move on when the holiday roster freezes on Saturday. Colton Ellis remains on injured reserve after concussion, but skated again Tuesday while Alex Lyon got the start in the game and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen served as the backup. We'll get to that when the right time comes, Kekalainen said. The rotation with 3 goalies is tough. The repetition and practice is tougher with 3 goalies. We've had Colton Ellis on the injured reserve list, so it's not something that we need to think about right now. And our goalies have been playing really well lately, so we'll get to that. Kekalainen is wasting no time shaping things away in his first week on the job. With the playing roster unable to be touched, the new GM has immediately turned his attention to the front office and made three major moves. He fired associate GM Jason Kermanos, who was also the GM of the Rochester Americans, and replaced him with former Montreal GM Marco Bergevin, and then recruited Columbus assistant GM Josh Flynn to rejoin him in similar roles in Buffalo as a specialist in the salary cap, the CBA, and analytics. Kekalainen has not worked with Bergevin on the same team, but liked his experience as a former NHL general manager and wanted to add more of that to his new organization. He's somebody that's been in my seat and knows the ins and outs of it, what you're dealing with, Kekalainen said. I've always had a lot of respect for him as the general manager, who was at the other end of it when we're talking about things, and I know he works hard. He's a good player evaluator. I think his track record in Montreal, as far as the trades go, is among the best in the league, so I think it's a great fit for us. Karmanos was a close confidant of Adams, but was living in Pittsburgh and making regular trips to Rochester and Buffalo to fulfill his role. Said Kekalainen, I think these moves were necessary now that we made, and that's why we made them now. Kekalainen said he is still going to be delineating duties among his staff and wasn't prepared to say who was going to be designated as the Merrick's general manager in the wake of Carmona's dismissal. We'll get to that in short order here. We've already talked among the staff and everybody's going to have a role, Kekalainen said. Everybody is going to have an important role, and the responsibilities are going to be spread. We're going to be working on this together as a team, not just like the guys on the ice. Kekalainen paid current assistant general manager Mark Jagobowski and Jerry Fortin are being retained. We're all going to work together. I've taken a very close look at our amateur scouting process and the staff, and they do a good job and very diligent about their work. I'm happy with the way things have gone so far on that side. Still, there's likely to be more moves, although it's believed Kekalainen has not yet asked the Blue Jackets for permission to talk to any of his other former staff members. Multiple NHL sources said it's a matter of time before Columbus Director of Amateur Scouting and former NHL forward Ville Serene gets a role with the Sabres. Serene was promoted to his current role by Kekalainen in 2016 and worked with him in the scouting department in St. Louis prior to the time in Columbus. There's also chatter around the Jackets pro scouting director, longtime NHL tough guy Basil McRae, who served as an assistant GM under Kekalainen for 5 seasons. Everybody has to have the same goal, and we're going to have to work together, Kekalainen said. And if we need to add some people, we'll add some people, Larry.
Thank you, Dick. We're going to do a quick reading from the Bills mailbag and then move on to Ask Eric, as the time limitations are breathing down our neck. Okay, from the Bills mailbag, Mike in Tampa asks, Keon Coleman has been inactive for 3 games. Do you think the Bills learned their lesson from keeping Kaiir Elam so long and will either cut their losses after the season or try to trade him before the start of next season? And then Jay, who's doing the mailbag, answers, I'd be surprised if they cut him outright, simply because the fear of him going elsewhere and being successful is real. Remember, the Bills moved on early from Wyatt Teller and watched as he developed into an all-pro with Cleveland. So they're going to want to avoid that scenario repeating itself. However, the possibility of trading Coleman has to be considered very real. It's clear he's buried on the depth chart, and it's fair to think he's lost the trust of his coaching staff and quarterback. If that is the case, recouping at least something from him would be wise. Bills obviously would be willing to sell very low in any trade, but getting something back in return would at least be a small win. And now I'm going to go to Ask Eric, and we'll continue on from there. Negative friend threatens to ruin shared multi-day vacation. Dear Eric, 3 friends and I are planning an 8-day cruise in January. 2 other people found out about the trip and are now coming as well. We are fine with that, but are not looking to make it a larger group. I am definitely not looking to turn into the cruise director for a group that often seems to happen. There is one friend that we feel is going to be very upset when she finds out about the cruise and feels personally excluded. And to be honest, she kind of was. While we have been careful not to talk about the trip in general so as not to encourage other people to say they want to come along, we have to very specifically not mention the trip to this person because she tends to be very negative, and those of us going on the trip could really only take her in small doses. Sad to say, none of us really want to spend what should be a fun vacation with her bringing us down. She doesn't see this behavior in herself, but everyone else does. I'm torn whether to mention this trip to her in advance or let her find out about it on her own, most likely from social media. And if I let the information drop, I'm not sure how to do it. I know she's going to be upset either way. Any advice? From Anxious Cruiser. Dear Cruiser, I'd be inclined to suggest you say nothing if it weren't for the sticky issue of the truth. It's perfectly fine for a subset of a friend group to decide to do something that doesn't necessarily involve the rest of the group. Bruised feelings might occur, but this isn't in and of itself a betrayal. But you've purposely been trying to exclude this one friend, something that she might correctly infer should she find out about the trip through social media. This is your right, of course, but you have to own your choices. To that end, I think about what you personally desire from this friendship. It won't help you to speak for the group, and hearing, we all think this never feels great. But if you have an individual connection to this friend that may or may not be damaged by this group's decision, let that connection guide your actions. Dear Eric, I own a few cars that I park on the street in front of my house. Some new toddlers and preschool kids are learning how to ride a bike. They circle constantly in front of my house instead of the house they rent next door to my house. The neighbors park all over the street and do not use the driveway. They have several cars and live in a cul-de-sac. They are not watching or teaching the kids how to ride or even stay out of the road as cars come through, but that's another issue. My question is, do I have any rights as a homeowner and county resident to ask the renters to stay away from the area in front of my house and the cars parked in front? My concern being the kids might hit my cars, and it's actually annoying to see them in front of my house for hours. People think these are my kids and think I'm not watching them. What can I do? From Neighborhood Watch. Dear Watch, depending on how much space there is on your street, I'm not sure it's reasonable to ask your neighbors to keep their cars away or keep their kids off the street. If you have an HOA, there may be some guidance there, but in general, the street is for everyone. If you're noticing that the children are behaving dangerously, or if you're finding that they're taking up more than their share of spaces, you should alert the parents, though a calm, civil conversation is called for. If I'm reading this correctly, you have a few more cars on the street and the neighbors have a few cars on the street, but you don't want them to park on the street. If this is the case, I'd presume it's because they're renters and you're a homeowner. I encourage you to let go of that belief. Indeed, a lot of your frustration could be alleviated by simply talking to all your neighbors. If it is really true that other neighbors think these are your kids, if they haven't bothered to talk to you, then what does it matter? Respectfully, your annoyance is not your neighbor's responsibility. You can ask for what you want, but also listen when your neighbors respond with what they want. Peaceful coexistence is the goal, and that's not going to happen if one person is dictating what can happen and can't happen in the neighborhood. Dick?
From the Notebook, Bill's cautious, but Allen should be good for Sunday. While Buffalo Bills head coach Sean McDermott said the quarterback Josh Allen is day-to-day following a right foot injury in Sunday's 23-20 win over the Browns, it was offensive coordinator Joe Brady that assuaged some fears about the quarterback's health. McDermott indicated that Allen will be good to go this Sunday against the Eagles, and Brady emphasized the sentiment. Yeah, I think day-to-day Ash Allen's going to do everything he can to get his body ready to go, Brady said Monday. You don't start as many games as he. I think it's probably in 130s or something like that. By not taking care of your body, every week he's taking hits, and that's what makes him him. And so I know he'll do whatever he has to do to be ready to go. McDermott on Tuesday said Allen would not practice as the team went set to hold a walkthrough. McDermott also said there was not a setback with Allen's injury. No real changes, McDermott said. Today was just a chance really to get around him a little bit and see how he's feeling. Obviously sore, so he's not going to practice today. We'll see how tomorrow goes. Bills' lone quarterback for Tuesday's walkthrough was Mitch Trubisky. After practice squad Shane Buechele was signed off the practice squad by Kansas City Chiefs on Tuesday. McDermott joked that he would get some quarterback reps before acknowledging the larger load for Trubisky. Mitch will do most of the work today. It's pretty much a walkthrough for us, McDermott said. Counting just regular season games as stated, Allen has started 120 in a row. As he looks to start number 121 this Sunday against the defending Super Bowl champs, Brady said the foot injury will not sway his opinion on calling running plays for the mobile quarterback. No, I think if we have the mindset, if our guys are out there, they're out there, and we'll be able to execute everything, Brady said. Shoot, the second play of the half, we did a move pocket play with him, and so I'll have no impact on the play calling. Allen did not miss a snap against the Browns. He stayed on the field after he was injured for one play, and then the Bills punted. Allen headed to the locker room with 3 seconds left in the half, but Brady didn't feel that timing had a major impact on his role as coordinator. Trubisky was prepared, but ultimately not needed. Yes, I think, as you guys have learned with Josh Allen, whenever he's ready to go, he's going to run back out in the football field, Brady said. It happened so quickly going in before the half, so there's just no adjustments to play calls. Mitch was ready to go. If Mitch had to go, he was going to be good to go, but we know Josh was going to be ready to rock as he was good to go. Held out. McDermott said the Bills also set to be without a number of other players on Tuesday. Defensive tackle Jordan Phillips, ankle. Kicker Matt Plater, squad. Safety Jordan Poyer, hamstrung. Defensive tackle Dawan Jones, calf. Tight end Dalton Kincaid, knee. Defensive back Cam Lewis, undisclosed. Defensive end Joey Bosa, undisclosed. McDermott did not have an indication for Prater, who missed Sunday's game. Don't know for sure, McDermott said. We'll see how it goes. You just take it one day at this point. McDermott said if there was any setback at Kincaid, it was a small one. But the main reason is injury management as the team continues to get Kincaid ready for each game. Game planning for Garrett. As the Bills prepared for the Browns, Brady couldn't overlook pass rusher Myles Garrett. Yes, we know it's a mashup league, and you obviously got to start with your guy first. And figuring out not just necessarily as we've always game plan, like with the strength and weakness, but how they coincide with their strengths. The strengths extend beyond just the players. We have an incredible staff that questions thoughts. If anything, it sparks ideas. Man, they do such a great job. And fortunately, we have the type of talent on the offense that we can do a bunch of different things with it. Garrett ended the game credit with just 0.5 sacks on a play where Allen gave himself up. A player of that caliber, we couldn't allow him to wreck the game, Brady said. And I know they gave him a half sack on the play, but we know he wasn't going to get a sack yesterday. And the mindset that the guys had and was pleased with how, he's the best in the game for a reason. You're thinking about him every play and whatnot. But our guys didn't blink, and I thought they really did a good job. Babich on cornerback rotation. With starting cornerback Christian Benford back in the lineup, the Bills continue to rotate veteran Trey DeVeris White and rookie Maxwell Hairston opposite Benford on Sunday. White played 71% of snaps, Hairston just 27. Knowing that sometimes longer drives can manipulate the snap count, defensive coordinator Bobby Babich was fine with the proportions. Yes, it's just what's best in the certain situations that we're in, Babich said. Trey is playing well. Obviously, CB is doing some really good things, but Max is doing some good things also. So it's, getting them their run and continue to bring Max along. 3 Bills make the Pro Bowl. Pro Bowl rosters are here, and the Bills' offense is being recognized for the Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen, running back James Cook, and left tackle Deion Dawkins have been named to this season's Pro Bowl. The Pro Bowl has been moved to Super Bowl week and will take place February 3rd in San Francisco. The selection marked Dawkins' 5th, Allen's 4th, Cook's 3rd Pro Bowl honors. Allen was further selected as the AFC starting quarterback for the Pro Bowl. He is joined by Drake May of the New England Patriots and Justin Herbert of the Los Angeles Chargers, representing quarterbacks for the AFC. The NFC quarterbacks are Sam Darnold, Seattle, Dak Prescott, Dallas, and Matthew Stafford, Los Angeles Rams. 4 teams tied for most Pro Bowl selections with 6 players: the Ravens, Denver Broncos, San Francisco, and Seahawks. There was some surprise around Western New York that Bulls fullback Reggie Gilliam was not selected. Ravens fullback Patrick Ricard, who has played just 9 games this season, is the AFC selection.
Thank you, Dick. Vast Epstein file release includes Trump mentions, few revelations. But before we do that, I need to remind you, you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service, with the time being 45 minutes past the hour. Back to the Epstein files. Washington. U.S. Justice Department has released tens of thousands more documents related to Jeffrey Epstein, a tranche that includes multiple mentions of President Trump, but added little new revelatory information to the long-anticipated public file on the late financier and convicted sex offender. The release is the most voluminous so far and comes after a massive public campaign for transparency into the U.S. government's Epstein investigations. Many of the mentions of Trump in the file came from news clippings, though it includes an email from a prosecutor pointing out the flights that Trump took on Epstein's private jet during the 1990s. The 2 men were friends for years before a falling out. Trump has not been accused of wrongdoing in connection with Epstein. The Justice Department issued a statement Tuesday that some documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims about Trump made shortly before the 2020 election, and said one document purported to be a letter from Epstein to Larry Nassar, a sports doctor convicted of sexually abusing Olympic athletes, has been deemed fake. Here are some takeaways. Trump's travel on Epstein's jet. Among the mentions of Trump in the latest batch of Epstein files is a note from a federal prosecutor in January 2020 that said Trump had flown on the financier's private jet more often than had been previously known. An assistant U.S. attorney from the Southern District of New York said in an email that flight records the office received on January 6, 2020, showed that Trump was on Epstein's jet many more times than previously had been reported, or that we were aware. The prosecutor who flagged Trump's mentions in the log said they did so because lawyers didn't want any of this to be a surprise down the road. His travels on Epstein's plane spanned the time that would likely be covered by any criminal charges against Epstein's co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell. Trump was listed as a passenger on at least 8 flights between 93 and 96, and on at least 4 of those flights, Maxwell was also there, according to the email. On one of those 8 flights in 1993, Trump and Epstein were the only 2 passengers listed in the logs. On another flight, the 3 passengers listed in records are Epstein, Trump, and a redacted individual who was 20 years old at the time. 2 other flights included 2 women whose names were redacted in follow-up emails, identified as potential witnesses in Maxwell's case. Several additional Trump trips on Epstein's plane had been previously disclosed during Maxwell's criminal proceedings. Asked for a comment about the email, the White House pointed to a Justice Department statement saying Monday's release contained unfounded and false claims against the president submitted to the FBI shortly before the 2020 election, but they were nevertheless being released for full transparency. The Justice Department specifically raised questions about the validity of a document mentioning Trump that was styled as a letter from Epstein to Nasser, who is in prison after being convicted of sexually abusing Olympic athletes. Later Tuesday, the department said on social media that the FBI had confirmed the letter is fake, based on the handwriting, Virginia postmark, and return address, which did not include Epstein's jail or inmate number, but both required for outgoing mail. This fake letter serves as a reminder that just because a document is released by the Department of Justice does not make the allegations or claims within the document factual, the department said in a post on X. Trump calls files a distraction. Trump complained that the files were a distraction from the work he and other Republicans are doing for the country. Speaking during an unrelated event at his Mar-a-Lago home in Palm Beach on Monday, the president blamed Democrats and some Republicans for the controversy. What this whole thing is with Epstein is a way of trying to deflect from the tremendous success that the Republican Party has, Trump said. He also expressed frustration about the famous people shown with Epstein in photos released by the Justice Department, people who he said may not have known him but ended up in the shot anyway. You probably have pictures being exposed of other people that innocently met Jeffrey Epstein years ago, many years ago, and they're, highly respected bankers and lawyers and others, Trump said. Other high-profile people. Well-known people shown in the files include former President Bill Clinton, the late pop star Michael Jackson, and singer Diana Ross. The mere inclusion of someone's name or images in files from the investigation does not imply wrongdoing. The latest release also includes files that put the UK's former Prince Andrew back in the headlines. Among those documents is a correspondence between Maxwell and someone who signs off with the initial A. The email exchange includes other references that suggest Maxwell's correspondent may be Andrew. He did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The August 2001 email from someone identified only as the Invisible Man said he is up here at Balmoor summer camp for the royal family, an apparent reference to the Scottish estate where the royal family have traditionally taken their summer holidays. Andrew was repeatedly denied committing any crimes, including having sex with Virginia Giuffre, who alleged that she was trafficked by Epstein and had sex with Andrew when she was 17. Biggest information dump yet. Trump tried for months to keep the record sealed before relenting to political pressure, including from some fellow Republicans, though he eventually signed a bill mandating the release of most of the Justice Department's files on Epstein. Monday's release was the biggest dump yet, including nearly 30,000 more pages. The data released by the law's Friday deadline contained a fraction of that amount, mostly photographs taken during FBI searches of Epstein's homes. The new cache includes news clippings, emails, and surveillance videos from the New York jail where Epstein was held before taking his own life in 2019, much of which was already in the public domain. The law called for the files to be released within 30 days, but the Justice Department has instead released them in stages starting Friday. Officials said they're going slowly to protect victims, though some women assaulted by Epstein have spoken out publicly to call for greater transparency.
Teacher fired after giving 0 on Bible-based gender essay. The University of Oklahoma has fired an instructor who was accused by a student of religious discrimination over a failing grade on a psychology paper in which she cited the Bible and argued promoting a belief of multiple genders was demonic. The university said in a statement posted Monday on X that its investigation found the graduate teaching assistant had been arbitrarily in giving 20-year-old junior Samantha Fulnecki 0 points on the assignment. The university declined to comment beyond its statement, which said the instructor had been removed from teaching. Through her attorney, the instructor, Mel Kurth, denied Tuesday that she had engaged in any arbitrary behavior regarding the student's work. The attorney, Brittany Stewart, said in a statement emailed to the Associated Press that Kurth is considering all of her legal remedies. Conservative groups commenting and others quickly made Fulnicky failing grade an online cause, highlighting her argument she's been punished for expressing conservative Christian views. Her case became a flashpoint in the ongoing debate over academic freedom on college campuses as President Trump pushes to end diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and restrict how campuses discuss race, gender, and sexuality. Fulnicky appealed her grade on the assignment, which was worth 3% of the final grade in the class, and the university said the assignment would not count. It also placed Kurth on leave, and Oklahoma's conservative Republican Governor Kevin Stiff declared the situation deeply concerning. University of Oklahoma believes strongly in both its faculty's rights to teach with academic freedom and integrity and its students' right to receive an education that is free from lecturers and permissible evaluative state standards. The university statement said, "We are committed to teaching students how to think, not what to think." A law approved this year by Oklahoma's Republican-dominated legislature and signed by Stitt prohibits state universities from assigning public funds to finance DEI programs or positions of mandating DEI training. However, the law says it does not apply to scholarly research or the academic freedom of any individual faculty member. Home telephone listings for Fulnicky in the Springfield, Missouri area have been disconnected, and her mom, an attorney, broadcaster, and radio host, did not immediately respond Tuesday to a Facebook message seeking comment about the university's action.
You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, December 24th, 2025. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Dick Shanley
and Larry Beenan. Thank you for listening, and please continue to stay safe.
Quick programming note, tomorrow is Christmas Day. As you know, today is Christmas Eve. Because of that, the offices of the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service will be closed on both tomorrow and Friday. We're celebrating Boxing Day too this year. So because of this, our program is going to be a little different. Tonight at 10 o'clock, we'll be playing an old-time radio show. This is all Christmas-themed shows, all from our old-time radio vault. Tomorrow morning, we'll be rebroadcasting this morning's Buffalo News. So if you're hearing me again around 10:57 tomorrow morning, that is why. At noon, we'll be playing Merry Christmas. It's a book of stories, songs, traditions of Christmas. At 4 o'clock, right when you're about to have dinner, Sir Patrick Stewart, John Luke Picard himself, is going to be reading A Christmas Carol. At 10 o'clock tomorrow night, we're also going to have that same similar old-time radio show, six other Christmas-themed shows from 10 to 1. On Friday at 9 o'clock, we'll be playing the Guinness Book of Christmas. That's 4 hours. It's from 9 until 1. At 1 p.m., we have The Birth of Jesus. Is an article from Newsweek. At 4 o'clock, from our friends at the International Association of Audio Information Services, we have Christmas Time in History. And then at 5 o'clock, we have Their Christmas Carol. All of our rest of our programming should be pretty much the same. Stay with us, though. Have a nice holiday, whatever it is you celebrate. If you already celebrated Hanukkah, I hope you had a great Hanukkah. I hope if you're celebrating Christmas today and tomorrow, you're having a great Christmas. And any other holidays you have, please enjoy. Stay with us, though, for additional readings.
following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have